A contentious child custody dispute between two Texas parents reached its breaking point in September of 2024 when 27-year-old Jalen J. Foreman was accused of shooting the mother of his child at the little boy's birthday party. The child's mother, 25-year-old Jalen Whitlock, and her new boyfriend were throwing a celebration for her son at a home in Houston when Foreman showed up after being told he wasn't welcome at the event. A witness later told news station KSLA that Foreman exited his car and began shooting and yelling at the residents. In response, Whitlock yelled that she wasn't afraid of Foreman, also stating, "I know where you live, and come at me." After briefly leaving, Foreman returned to the scene and said, "We're going to end this now." He then shot Whitlock, who died at the scene. Speaking with KHOU, a neighbor recalled feeling terrified as she ducked for cover. In the moments leading up to the shooting, she had overheard angry shouting. Law enforcement had previously responded to child custody calls at the residence, indicating the presence of ongoing issues between the former couple, who had 2 children together. Foreman turned himself in 2 days after the murder and remains in custody at the Harris County Jail, with bond set at $800,000. Number 15. Daniel Heyen. A group of people were celebrating the 4th of July on Manhattan's Lower East Side in 2024 when a drunk driver mowed them down in a Ford F-150 pickup truck. According to police, 44-year-old substance abuse counselor Daniel Heyen blew through a stop sign, over a sidewalk, and into the grass at Collier's Hook Park, where the victims were barbecuing right in his path. Surveillance footage reportedly showed the vehicle barreling toward the group at 39 miles per hour with no signs of the driver trying to stop or slow down. 59-year-old Lucille Pinckney, her son, 38-year-old Hernan Pinckney, and 43-year-old Anna Morell died in the wreck while 8 others survived their injuries. When first responders arrived at the scene, 4 individuals were pinned beneath Heyen's 5,000-pound truck. As they worked to free the victims, bystanders restrained Heyen until police arrived. Responding officers smelled alcohol on the suspect's breath, immediately leading them to believe that intoxication played a role in the crash. Heyen was charged with 4 counts of second-degree murder, 1 count of aggravated vehicular homicide, 4 counts of second-degree assault, 3 counts of third-degree assault, driving while intoxicated, and driving without a valid license. About an hour before the deadly crash, police believe Heyen got into a fight with a bar bouncer after being denied entry to a party due to being highly intoxicated. The bouncer agreed to refund him for his ticket to the party, and he left the establishment. The accused killer has a lengthy rap sheet spanning multiple states and a decades-long history of addiction. During a more sober time in his life, he authored a book about how to live a functional life while struggling with substance abuse. He also earned his master's degree in addiction counseling, but apparently continued to struggle with staying sober. Number 14. Clinton Cottom. 1 partygoer was killed and another was critically injured during a gathering in Bedlam, Oklahoma, in November of 2021, when a heavily intoxicated, uninvited guest plowed his truck into the victims in a fit of rage. 35-year-old Clinton Cottom had been asked to leave the get-together for allegedly harassing women. He went to a neighbor's house where he had parked his truck and drove over to the party that he had just been kicked out of. Angry that he had been booted from the party, Cottom began ramming into parked cars that were parked in the front yard, prompting panicked guests to flee into the house and garage. The suspect's truck hit the vehicles with such force that some of them were moved at least 3 feet away from their original parking spaces. 1 man became pinned between the house and the car, while another victim, Terry McCauley, became pinned beneath Cottom's overturned truck after he lost control of the vehicle and rolled it. Using a tractor, witnesses rushed to pull the truck off McCauley, but they were unable to save her. She was pronounced dead at the scene, and the surviving victim was airlifted to the hospital in critical condition with a fractured pelvis and other injuries. A 3rd person suffered internal injuries but was expected to be okay. Cotton was charged with an array of crimes, including first-degree murder and 4 counts of assault and battery with a dangerous weapon. The outcome of the case is unclear. Number 13. Miguel Shakum Perez. In December of 2016, 26-year-old plumber's apprentice Chad Robinson was stabbed to death at a Christmas party in London, Ontario. He was attending the open bar gathering at a banquet hall with other trade workers when he got into an alcohol-fueled argument with a Cuban immigrant named Miguel Shakum Perez. Someone plunged a knife into Robinson's chest during the melee that ensued, fatally piercing his heart. Eyewitnesses gave investigators varying accounts of what had happened. The confrontation reportedly occurred when Robinson and his friend, Nathan Smith, poked fun at Shakum Perez for trying to sell an old fish tank he found in an empty rental unit on the internet. They jokingly called Shakum Perez the Kijiji Man after the Canadian online used marketplace, and he got offended by the nickname. Shakum Perez initially left the party with several of his friends, including Irvine Alex Aparicio Chicas. According to one bystander, Smith got into a fight with the group of men and Robinson joined in when he saw that his friend was involved. Some witnesses said they saw a weapon in Shakum Perez's waistband, while others pointed the finger at Aparicio Chicas. Shakum Perez and two others were seen disposing of the murder weapon, and his DNA was found on the handle, but no witnesses reported seeing him actually stab Robinson. He denied any knowledge of the knife and told investigators that the fight was over something Robinson said about his wife rather than the Kijiji Man story that others claimed had sparked the brawl. During his first trial in 2018, Shakum Perez accused Aparicio Chicas of killing Robinson. He admitted that he threw the knife over a fence, but claimed that he did so at Aparicio Chicas' request. Shakum Perez was convicted of the stabbing but continued to maintain his innocence and challenged the case. In 2022, the court granted him a new trial. Instead of a traditional jury proceeding with testimony and arguments, however, the judge will determine a verdict based on the existing evidence and recordings from the previous trial hearings. The new trial began in November of 2024 and is ongoing. Number 12. Nathaniel Ahmed Melendez Jr. A teenage woman was killed and two young people were wounded when Nathaniel Ahmed Melendez Jr. opened fire on a group of people during a party at a San Antonio apartment complex. In 2016, Evelyn Gombardo died from her injuries while her roommate, 18-year-old Catalina Farias, was among the injured. Authorities charged the alleged gunman Nathaniel Ahmed Melendez with Gombardo's murder. During his trial in 2024, the 22-year-old took the stand in his own defense, testifying that he feared for his life when he pulled the trigger. Melendez admitted to being high on ecstasy at the time of the shooting, claiming that the drug made him paranoid that others at the party had plans to kill him. He told the court that Farias came up to him as he tried to leave, causing him to fear that she had sinister intentions. The accused killer shocked the court when he told a completely new story during his testimony, telling the jury that Farias had grabbed the gun. He said that he wouldn't have fired the weapon if Farias hadn't approached him. When further pressed about his decision to shoot, Melendez admitted that he had no excuse for his actions, stating, "I don't know why. I just know what led to me feeling this certain type of way." The jury found him guilty of murder and other charges for killing Gombardo and injuring the two other victims, and he was sentenced to 70 years in prison. Number 11. Alice Wood. In May of 2022, 23-year-old philosophy student Alice Wood joined her boyfriend, 24-year-old Ryan Watson, at a birthday party in Cheshire, England, for someone he served as a worker for a brain injury charity. Guests would later describe Watson as the life of the party, while Wood remained uninvolved in the festivities. Watson clicked with a party-goer who sat at the couple's table, Tiffany Faraday, and Wood was largely excluded from the conversation. Faraday felt like Wood was staring at her throughout the gathering, but she probably never predicted that the couple's night would end in murder. After returning to the home she and Watson shared in Road Heath, Wood lost her temper and rammed into her boyfriend with her Ford Fiesta, killing him at the scene. Neighbor Elaine Abbott told the BBC News that she heard Watson say something to the effect of, "Oh God, not this again," before he started walking away from Wood. Other nearby residents reported hearing crunching metal and engine revving and doors slamming. Wood drove at Watson 3 times before running him over and dragging him for more than 500 feet along the pavement. After stopping her car, she asked a neighbor to call for help. The young woman admitted to running Watson over but denied murder, claiming she only meant to intimidate Watson, Prosecutors accused her of acting deliberately and with intent, telling the court that after a night of drinking at the party, the couple argued on the drive home while accusing each other of flirting with other people. In January 2024, Wood was found guilty of murder and sentenced to life with a minimum of 18 years. Number 10. Danan Bentley. While at a house party in Orange County, Florida, in April of 2021, 22-year-old Danan Bentley contacted 28-year-old Azim Smith via Snapchat at around 3:15 a.m. and asked for a ride, done in a mask. Bentley fired 6 shots into Smith's car as he pulled up to the residence, killing him at the scene. Recognizing the gunman as Bentley, witnesses watched as he hopped a fence into the backyard and joined the gathering. In the meantime, Smith was rushed to the hospital where he died from his injuries. In addition to being seen by partygoers, Smith's murder was captured on surveillance video. When a search of Bentley's cell phone revealed that he had lured the victim to the scene, he offered no explanation or motive. Following a 5-day trial in May of 2024, a jury found Bentley guilty of first-degree murder. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Number 9. William Parker. Described by friends and family as the nicest person you'll ever meet, 27-year-old Marcel Turner Pongratz celebrated his 2024 Halloween by attending a party at a bar and grill in Taylor, Michigan. Halloween was his favorite holiday, and the bar, Big League Brews, was one of his favorite places to get together with friends. But any happy memories that his group had made there were forever overshadowed when tragedy struck later that night. As Turner Pongratz was leaving at the end of the night, a fight broke out in the parking lot. He was stabbed in the chest and managed to drive himself to the hospital, where he succumbed to his injuries. Police responded to the scene after receiving a 911 call from the accused stabber, 40-year-old William Parker, who claimed that someone at the bar had pulled a gun on him. Staff members told officers that they had split up an altercation inside the bar and kicked the parties involved out. The hostilities continued in the parking lot, first starting as a verbal argument and quickly escalated into a physical brawl. By the time law enforcement arrived, Parker had fled the scene. But at a local watering hole where everyone knows everyone, it didn't take long for investigators to identify and locate him. A police spokesperson told the Oakland Press that alcohol consumption most likely played a role in the deadly confrontation. Everyone involved had been drinking heavily, and Parker was reportedly still legally intoxicated 10 hours after the stabbing. He's facing a second-degree murder charge and is being held without bail at the Wayne County Detention Center as he awaits his next court hearing. Number 8. Raul Valle. A gathering of students from Connecticut's prestigious Fairfield Preparatory School took a terrifying turn in May of 2022 when star lacrosse player James "Jimmy" McGrath was murdered at a house party in Shelton. According to investigators, what began as a friendly get-together devolved into chaos when a fight broke out between students from opposing schools. McGrath was trying to break up the altercation when he was fatally stabbed. By the time McGrath and 3 surviving victims were found suffering from knife wounds outside the party, the suspected stabber, Raul Elia Valle, had left with his friends to attend another gathering elsewhere. A witness described seeing Valle pulling a knife and plunging it into McGrath's chest, then pulling it out. The bystander said that McGrath was standing nearby but not chasing Valle when the stabbing occurred. 4 days later, authorities charged Valle as an adult with murder and 3 counts of first-degree assault. In 2023, he rejected a plea deal which would have come with a 40-year prison sentence. The case was originally scheduled to go to trial in late 2024 but has been rescheduled for May of 2025. In the meantime, McGrath's family is suing 17 defendants for wrongful death, including Valle, his parents, and several other teens who were present at the time of the stabbing. Number 7. Bobby Andrew Fye. A long-standing dispute between 2 Tennessee men ended in death for both parties in November of 2024 when they got into an altercation at a birthday party in Putnam County, roughly 80 miles outside Nashville. The rivalry between 56-year-old Bobby Andrew Fye and 63-year-old Randall Eldridge dated back at least 10 years prior to the fatal encounter, according to police, who revealed that the enemies were among a group of family and friends who had gathered to celebrate someone's 80th birthday. At around 8 p.m., Phi and Eldridge began arguing in the driveway. During the confrontation, Phi pulled a gun and fatally shot Eldridge. By the time emergency responders arrived at the scene, Eldridge was also dead from a gunshot wound. While authorities did not go into detail about the dynamics of the dispute between the men or the specific circumstances leading to their deaths, Putnam County Sheriff Eddie Farris said that the people at the birthday party were highly respected and upstanding citizens. He went on to describe the incident as unfortunate and a sad tragedy. Number 6. Philip Arning. 35-year-old father of 6, Adam Tobias of Houston, Texas, was enjoying his daughter Destiny's high school graduation party in May of 2023 when Destiny's mother's estranged boyfriend, 24-year-old Philip Arning, arrived at the celebration. Tobias was remarried and his wife had attended the party, which took place at Destiny's mother's home. Wanting to spend quality time with his daughter, he stayed behind at the bash after his wife went home. But Arning became angry toward him and an altercation broke out between the two men. Destiny later told Click 2 Houston that Arning wasn't even supposed to be at the party, yet he was trying to take control of the event by ordering people to leave. Tobias wanted to continue the celebration, and Arning opened fire on the party during their argument, killing him at the scene. Arning was booked into custody on suspicion of murder and was released a few days later after posting a $50,000 bond. The case appears to be ongoing. Number 5. Phoebe Handsjuk. In one of Australia's strangest mysteries, 24-year-old Phoebe Handsjuk fell 12 stories to her death at her luxury apartment building in Melbourne in 2010. The young woman's body was found next to a garbage can after tumbling nearly 400 feet down a garbage chute. Police ruled that Handsjuk deliberately jumped down the chute, while the coroner who performed her autopsy concluded that she had died in a freak accident. She had been drinking heavily in the hours leading up to the bizarre tragedy, and her blood alcohol content was 3 times the legal limit when the incident occurred. Handsjuk had left the building with her dog shortly before noon, after a fire alarm went off. She returned home a short while after that, then plummeted feet first to the ground through the chute several hours later, nearly severing her right foot on the way down. She survived the initial fall, but bled to death while crawling around desperately in search of help. When Handsjuk's partner arrived home, he found broken glass and blood in the apartment, and the woman's personal belongings were on the counter, including her purse and keys. In 2021, experts hired by Channel 9's Under Investigation performed an experiment which proved that it would have been nearly impossible for Handsjuk to climb into the chute on her own. A model the same size as Handsjuk was only able to enter the chute with her arms directly above her head. This finding conflicts directly with the claims of detectives who speculated that Handsjuk had slid down the chute with her arms at her side after climbing into it in a drunken and drug-induced daze. Moreover, the model in the experiment was sober and struggled, leading to doubts that Handsjuk would have been able to maneuver herself into the chute in an intoxicated state. Police never secured CCTV footage from the area or searched Handsjuk's electronic devices, but when her family accessed her laptop, they discovered that her outgoing emails had been deleted and one of her 2 cell phones was never found. They believe someone forced Handsjuk into the garbage chute, but the coroner ruled that she had somehow fallen to her death after breaking a glass and taking it to the chute to dispose of it. To this day, unanswered questions continue to surround the case, leaving Handsjuk's loved ones without long-awaited answers. Number 4. Michael D Bagio. In July of 2019, a Newcastle, Pennsylvania teenager named Darren Scott Jeffcack was gunned down outside a pizza shop by his girlfriend's father, 41-year-old D Bagio. According to initial reports, D Bagio killed Jeffcack after finding out that the victim had smoked marijuana with his daughter at a party. News sources later revealed that the suspect believed Jeffcack had introduced his daughter to cocaine, even though a post-mortem toxicology test showed that the victim had no narcotics in his system at the time of his death. Following his arrest on suspicion of murder and other charges, D Bagio reportedly told investigators that he fired 5 or 6 bullets into Jeff Kak's head to put him out of his misery. He committed the crime while his wife and daughter were at a nearby shopping mall. D Bagio pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, but the jury convicted him of first-degree murder following a week-long trial in October of 2023. He was sentenced to life without parole, but is appealing his case in hopes of being granted a new trial. In addition to his allegation that the court failed to instruct the jury of his presumption of innocence, D Bagio is accusing an expert witness of misleading the jury, and members of the jury itself of failing to take the case seriously. Number 3. Sophie Ranky. 34-year-old British mother of 3, Sophie Ranky, and her fiancé, JJ Warner, traveled to Turkey with their children 6 weeks ahead of their wedding in 2024, following JJ's devastating cancer diagnosis. Their goal was to create some happy memories as a family before JJ started treatment, but the trip ended in tragedy when Ranky was found dead on their hotel room balcony. Sophie and her teenage daughter, Alicia, had gone dancing together the night before as a girls' night out while Warner stayed in with the other 2 kids. Knowing she was upset over her cancer diagnosis, Warner encouraged her to let loose and have a fun time, but she had a little too much fun and choked to death on her own vomit after returning to the hotel and collapsing on the balcony. Alicia found her mother unresponsive the next morning, and Warner managed to briefly bring her back, but Ranky's pulse was weak and emergency room doctors were unable to save her, leaving Warner on his own to raise their young family while he battles cancer. Today's topic was requested by Romello Carney and F. Jolly 86. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Luigi De Jesus. In a shocking act of violence that occurred in broad daylight in April of 2019, 33-year-old Luigi De Jesus shot his girlfriend in the face and ran her over with his truck outside her Hartford, Connecticut home. De Jesus had been dating 33-year-old Nathaniel for 6 months when they stepped outside to talk during a family party. A short while later, Felicano was found face down in her driveway in a pool of blood. By the time police responded to the scene, De Jesus had fled. Described by Felicano's loved ones as toxic, he had a long history of domestic violence and other disturbing criminal charges, including armed robbery, reckless endangerment, larceny, and violating an order of protection. Shortly after the murder, investigators discovered that he had pistol whipped and robbed a man at gunpoint while making Felicano act as the getaway driver. Police confirmed to local station News 8 that De Jesus treated Felicano poorly, and her family said that she feared De Jesus would kill her if she didn't follow his orders. Several days after Felicano was killed, police spotted De Jesus in Hartford, marking the beginning of a high-speed chase spanning several towns. He was eventually captured and is now serving a 40-year prison sentence for murder with a projected release date in the year 2059. You know who also like to party? Socialites. Our release about when socialites go wrong is lined up right after number 1. Stick around right after if you haven't seen it yet. Number 1. Jose Kevin Valencia Zavala. 20-year-old Kaylee Lynn Allen's life was abruptly cut short in April of 2023 when she was fatally shot outside a house party in Merced, California. Police say that the teenage suspect, Jose Kevin Valencia Zavala, became angry when he was denied entry into an 18 and up event due to his age. He tried to fight the bouncers, who ordered him to leave, at which point he began bragging about being a gang member. As the suspect finally turned and began walking toward the parking lot, he pulled a gun and began shooting toward the bouncers. Struck by one of the bullets, Allen collapsed onto the pavement and died at the scene in front of her horrified grandmother, who had just dropped the young woman and her boyfriend off at the event. About a month after the shooting, Valencia Zavala was arrested on suspicion of murder. More than a year and a half later, the case still appears to be in its beginning stages. As of November 2023, preliminary hearings are ongoing, and the judge overseeing the case will determine whether there's enough evidence to take the case to trial. Number 8. Jacqueline Kent Cook. 29-year-old Jacqueline Kent Cook was arrested for verbally and physically assaulting a stranger at a high-end restaurant in Manhattan on New Year's Eve 2017. The millionaire socialite daughter of former Washington Redskins owner Jack Kent Cooke was reportedly on her way out of Caravaggio on the Upper East Side when she made an anti-Semitic remark towards another patron, described as an older woman. Cooke was then confronted by the woman's son, 52-year-old Matthew Habercorn, whom she proceeded to strike over the head with her sharp-edged glass purse. The handbag, reported as having been a Lulu Guinness mirrored perspex clutch, inflicted a nasty gash on Habercorn's scalp, which caused blood to drip along the side of his face and stain his collared shirt. In the incident's aftermath, Cooke claimed to have been acting in self-defense when she attacked the man, who she accused of chasing her down the street and breaking her finger after she'd insulted his mother. However, in October of 2018, the socialite pleaded guilty to disorderly conduct and instead of taking her case to trial was ordered to serve 3 days of community service. Number 7. Rebecca Grossman. On September the 29th of 2020, socialite Rebecca Grossman was responsible for a high-speed traffic accident in Westlake Village, California, which claimed the lives of 2 young brothers. During a preliminary court hearing on the matter, investigators detailed how the woman, then in her late 50s, had been traveling at speeds of up to 81 miles per hour in the moments leading up to the fateful crash. Grossman ultimately blazed through an unmarked crosswalk and struck the 2 victims, who were crossing the street with their parents at the time. One of the boys was killed instantly, while the other passed away later at the hospital. In a conversation with a Mercedes-Benz operator following the collision, Grossman indicated that she didn't know if she had hit anything, but that her airbag had exploded suddenly while she was driving down the road. In the wake of the tragic incident, the socialite was charged with 2 felony counts, each of murder and vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence, as well as 1 felony count of hit-and-run driving resulting in death. Grossman, a co-founder of the Grossman Burn Foundation, was initially scheduled to stand trial in May of 2022. However, her legal team subsequently filed a motion to have her aforementioned murder charges dismissed. In September of 2022, Superior Court Judge Joseph Brandolino denied that motion, ensuring a murder trial for Grossman, who would face a maximum sentence of 34 years to life in federal prison. Number 6. Tinsley Mortimer. Television personality and socialite Tinsley Mortimer was taken into police custody on April the 9th of 2016 after allegedly trespassing on her ex-boyfriend's property in Palm Beach, Florida. The 40-year-old woman, who rose to prominence following appearances on the reality TV series High Society and The Real Housewives of New York City, had, prior to her arrest, requested a civil standby because she wanted to retrieve her belongings from inside the residence. Local authorities responded by informing Mortimer that she was in fact trespassing on private property after a previous trespass warning in October of the previous year. The socialite became enraged with the 911 dispatcher and reportedly screamed into her phone before disconnecting the call, at which point officers were sent to the scene. Upon their arrival, they found Mortimer in a state of hysteria, howling about how her purse was inside her former partner's house. The ex-boyfriend, identified as Alex Fanjul, denied that he had any of Mortimer's belongings, and the police then placed her under arrest. A few months later, the woman struck a deal with prosecutors to have her trespassing charges dismissed. In exchange, Mortimer agreed to cease all communication with Fanjul, as well as stay away from his and his parents' homes. Number 5. Jasmine Harting. The estranged wife of the son of Britain's Lord Michael Ashcroft was arrested in May of 2021 after she fatally shot a police superintendent following an evening of drinking. It was reported that Jasmine Harting initially told investigators that the victim, Henry Gemott, was a friend and that he'd been hit by a gunshot fired from a boat passing by the San Pedro pier on which they were standing. However, after a jailhouse visit from her lawyer, Harting's account of the events changed. She admitted that Gemott had been showing her how to load and unload a gun when she inadvertently fired the fatal round at him herself. The woman was charged with manslaughter by negligence before being released on bond, pending the commencement of her trial. The following year, Harting made international headlines once again after it emerged that she'd allegedly put out a hit on Belize's police commissioner as well as a local magistrate. The socialite vehemently denied these accusations and expressed her personal belief that she was being set up by corrupt government officials. As of recent updates, a trial date hadn't yet been set. If convicted of her charges, Harting faced the possibility of spending up to 5 years behind bars. Number 4. Joselyn Waldenstein. New York socialite Joselyn Waldenstein was accused of launching a vicious attack on her boyfriend at her Trump World Tower apartment in the early hours of December the 7th of 2016. The 71-year-old previously gained international notoriety for her extensive cosmetic modifications and facial plastic surgery, which earned her the derisive nickname Catwoman due to her supposedly cat-like appearance. According to the resulting police report, Waldenstein used her fingernails to claw at 49-year-old Lloyd Klein's face. She then allegedly took a pair of scissors to the man's chest, causing several red marks and substantial pain. Klein, a designer, managed to escape by stuffing the woman inside a closet. Waldenstein later accused him of forcefully pushing her when he returned to the apartment to collect his belongings. In the initial aftermath, the socialite and her boyfriend were both ordered to refrain from making any form of contact with one another. However, the criminal charges stemming from the domestic episode were later dropped at the couple's behest. In November of the following year, Waldenstein and Klein were involved in yet another domestic violence incident at the former's apartment. A reportedly trivial argument had sparked between the two, culminating in a physical altercation that resulted in both of their arrests on charges of misdemeanor assault. Number 3. Seapa. Ugandan socialite Charles Olimu, known under the alias Seapa, was placed on the police's most wanted list after allegedly taking part in a home invasion on the night of August the 28th of 2022. According to local authorities, 33-year-old Seapa, along with a group of yet unidentified accomplices, broke into the Kawuku Bunga home of a South Sudanese national named James Arok. State prosecutors claimed that the intruders used chloroform rags to sedate the house's occupants before stealing $429,000 in cash, a television set, mobile phones, and an Apple laptop. Seapa and his girlfriend, designer Nakayemba, went on the run in the incident's immediate aftermath. On September the 6th of 2022, it was reported that the pair had been remanded into custody on charges of aggravated robbery, a capital offense that is only triable by the High Court of Uganda. Number 2. Hadley Palmer. Connecticut socialite Hadley Palmer was accused of secretly filming people in her multi-million-dollar Greenwich mansion for her own twisted, voyeuristic pleasure. Court documents reveal that the woman, then in her 50s, had between 2017 and 2018 knowingly photographed, filmed, and recorded certain individuals without their knowledge or consent, and under circumstances where those individuals were not in plain view and had a reasonable expectation of privacy. It was mentioned how one such instance of voyeurism involved a minor, although the specific details of Palmer's misdeeds were largely left out of public reports. The Greenwich Police Department's investigation into the salacious socialite also led to the arrest of Dr. Jerome F. Broadley. The latter was reported as a child psychologist who faced charges of failure to report abuse, neglect, or injury of a child in connection to the case. Palmer, the daughter of wealthy hedge fund founder Gerald Fine, ultimately agreed to a plea deal that reduced her initially severe charges to 3 counts of voyeurism and risk of injury to a minor. She consequently served 90 days at the York Correctional Institution pending her actual sentencing date, which was reportedly scheduled for August of 2022. Number 1. Farouq Abdulhak. In the early morning hours of March the 14th of 2008, Norwegian University student Martine Vik Magnussen left a nightclub in London's wealthy Mayfair district. The 23-year-old was reportedly accompanied by Farouq Abdulhak, a fellow student at Regent's Business School and the son of one of Yemen's richest men, Shahir Abdulhak. The pair got into a cab together, marking the final time Magnuson was ever seen alive. Hours later, Abdulhak got on a plane to Cairo, where it is believed he boarded a private jet bound for Yemen's capital city. On March the 15th, after Magnuson never returned home from her night out, her friends reported her missing to local authorities. Then the following day, the young woman's body was found in the basement of an apartment block, hidden under rubble in a block of flats on Great Portland Street. An autopsy determined that she'd been assaulted and fatally strangled. Magnuson's socialite companion immediately became the focus of Metropolitan Police's homicide investigation. After it emerged that Abdulhak had fled to his home country in the aftermath of the murder, UK authorities issued a formal request for his extradition to the Yemeni government. As of the latest updates on the case, the suspect was still at large, believed to have been holed up in Yemen since the crime occurred. However, in March of 2022, the police arrested an unnamed woman on charges of assisting an offender, which was labeled a significant development in the effort to bring Magnuson's killer or killers to justice. Thanks for watching. What is the dumbest thing you have ever done while under the influence? Let us know in the comments section below if you dare.